Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Anna Morfides with Medic Hearts Counseling, and today's video is going to be the first one in the new year 2025. And I really wanted to do this self-reflection on what we learned in the year 2024, as now I understand that life is supposed to be full of experiences, whether we experience them as mistakes or as milestones, or we experiencing them as things to celebrate, because a lot of the times our experiences, based on how we feel after them, they're either going to have a negative label or a positive label based on the emotion that they elated from us after the fact. So did that experience bring out joy in us, or did it bring sadness, fear, anger, or disgust? So, but probability alone, the fact that we're going to land in these four as opposed to this one is just greater, just purely by the laws of physics. So how do we navigate those experiences, and what did we learn from them in the year that just passed, 2024? So I feel for me, I learned self-forgiveness. This was the biggest lesson that I needed to experience in the year 2024. So how would I experience and master situations where I would have to really know how to give myself forgiveness or how to practice self-forgiveness? Well, naturally, I would have to find myself in situations that made me feel not okay about certain actions that I decided to take. And then I knew by the way that I felt after that this is an action that I want to repeat again in the future, or this action does really not feel good and I want to guilt and shame myself for even embarking on that path in the first place. So now I know that this was an opportunity for me to grow, as opposed to looking at it as a mistake, because as my teacher says, there are no such things as mistakes. They're opportunities for growth. They are opportunities for self-improvement. Yes, we've learned in our language today to call them mistakes, and there is a meaning that goes with that, but we could easily reframe that word to opportunities for growth as opposed to labeling it as a mistake. So then we take the negativity out of it and really put a spin on it that is supposed to be more accurate. It's supposed to be an experience that is a catalyst for our self-growth, because how else are we going to know unless we try something if it's working or not working? And we can only know by feeling after that. And if we give something a negative meaning, then it is going to be counterproductive to what that experience is supposed to be teaching us, or is there in the first place for. Because if everything is as our greatest teachers tell us, that everything around us is a prop and we give things meaning based on our core beliefs, based on our self-concept. That's why books such as The Four Agreement are really, really wonderful to read, because in the Four Agreements, one of the four agreements is to never take anything personally, and another one of the agreements is to not assume anything, because we give meanings to things and assumptions to things based on the core beliefs that we acquired as children, and those core beliefs are so variant and are not true because we're not born with these core beliefs. They're something that is acquired based on our childhood experience, and that can also be vastly differently too. That's why they don't have a validity. These core beliefs, they're not true, and we all have unhelpful core beliefs that would be of most benefit for us to shed. And the only way that we understand what these core beliefs are is when we find ourselves in situations that feel challenging based on the way that we feel after we do that, and we understand what we need to release that is not doing us any service in this moment. So for example, for me, self-forgiveness is something that I needed to master, because it's easy for me to help others forgive themselves. And it's easy for me to know the steps to self-forgiveness, but it was not always so easy for me to do that for myself, as I never cultivated that skill when I was a younger child. I was held responsible for any mistake that I did as a child and was punished. Therefore, I held the belief that I needed to keep continuing that pattern. And sadly, our ego, aka our misguided ally, will also the ego will basically thrive in that same experience that it received as a child, because it doesn't know the difference between what is good for it and what is bad for it. So even though something like self-punishment is not good for us, if that's the only thing is familiar, it will seek for that experience because it feeds off of that. So I understand why I wanted to punish myself. So in order for me to understand how to practice the self-forgiveness step, of course, I had to find myself in situations where I had an opportunity to do that. So again, the way that I would practice self-forgiveness and have mastered self-forgiveness is not beating myself up and understanding that everything is happening for a reason. There is no such thing as a mistake. There is only opportunities for self-development and for self-growth. And if I continue to look at the positive that came out from that experience, as opposed to harboring or ruminating on the negative, if I focus on the positive, then I'm not counteracting on what this experience is supposed to be teaching me, because it is counterproductive when we focus on the negative and we don't see the beauty or the gem that came out of a so-called mistake, because there's always going to be an opportunity for growth and development in every so-called mistake that we make. That's just simple laws of life, and that's how life works. So then I guess it depends on the upbringing that we have and the beliefs that we have about what should a consequence be when we do those so-called mistakes, that will determine how we act after that. So aside from really practicing self-forgiveness and remembering that mistakes are opportunities for growth and self-development, and there is no such thing as a negative experience, as long as I choose to look at the positive of it, and I'm allowing the experience of that so-called mistake to be present in my life, and accepting that I needed to behave or I needed to be that specific way in that moment of time in order for me to gain the lesson that I did after that, is where freedom lies and where self-forgiveness begins. So aside from that, I also learned to release shame. I had a lot of that stored in my body. So we know now from books such as The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk that unless we release the emotions that we acquired as children through our adolescent life, through our early adult life, and into today, unless we release those emotions, they will affect our body, and they will come up in situations that were similar to the ones that created that feeling to be stored in our body in the first place. So if you're finding yourself in situations where you are feeling guilt, shame, discomfort, whatever it is, the only reason why that's coming up again is because it needs to be released. And unless we view it in that way and understand that the only reason why we feel these triggers in the first place is for us to really realize and see that that emotion and or feeling is stored in our body, and we're given an opportunity to let it go by having that experience that makes us feel that way. So every time I would have an experience to feel the shame that was accumulated within myself as a child, every time I had this experience, that was an opportunity for me to release it once and for all. And once I understood and was able to look at it in that way, as opposed to allowing myself to wallow in that misery of shame or immerse myself in the shame and stay with it instead of staying and sitting with it and continuing to punish myself, I understood that every time I would be in a situation to feel it was an opportunity for me to let it go. And the year 2024 is actually a really big year for me for releasing all the shame that was stored in my body because of my experiences up to my 40 years of age. And I was able to release that through breath work. And there's many breath work facilitators out there that you could use. And I will link I will link the information of the breathwork facilitator that I used. And I swear I cried out shame for 2 hours straight during that breathwork exercise because the body does really keep the score. And now I am able to not feel the shame as I did before when situations arise that could potentially make me feel shame about who I am and my actions. I don't feel the shame like I did for the last 45 plus years. It's completely changed for me, and I'm so grateful that I was able to have the experience to completely release and let it go. So now I know that my body is definitely not keeping that score anymore, and I'm starting to keep different scores for myself that resemble the complete opposite of shame. It's acceptance, love, gratitude, because those are more higher frequency vibrations and they have higher hertz than other emotions that I could potentially predominantly live in most. And because I am raising that vibration, then by the law of attraction, because it works by bringing things in, never by assertion. Nothing is ever done by force. I'm raising my frequency and I'm bringing in more wonderful things that match that frequency of love, acceptance, gratitude, peace. And it would be ideal for all of us to land in the space where we can bring in these experiences day in and day out, because what better way to live than that? And the other big one, actually, milestone that I had in 2024 is I released my core belief that I'm bound to be rejected and I'm bound to be abandoned. That abandonment was the biggest. I did this process called muscle testing, where a licensed or practitioner or a certified practitioner who knows how to do muscle testing tested certain parts of my body to see what it was holding on to, and the word abandonment was really, really, really prominent. And I know that it was prominent because even in my relationships, I always sort of waited for the other shoe to drop. I expected that I would be abandoned, whether or not it was someone new that I had just met. I would have this fear that eventually they would leave me. Or when I was in a relationship, I would have fear of abandonment, that they would not be there for me and they would leave me, as opposed to, say, going on a date night with me, they would leave me to go out with their friends. Or as opposed to hanging out with me, they would go to, again, hang out with their friends. I was just always expecting to be abandoned because that was, again, my experience as a child. And I acquired this belief that I'm just bound to be abandoned and rejected. So I shed that, and I actually did that shedding, that muscle testing, through Dr. Tomek Pajak. He worked at or founded the clinic, the Neuro Lounge in Vancouver. And that's where I did that to release it. And I swear that ever since I did that and I released the abandonment, and I've been practicing, I am bound to be accepted, and I expect nothing else than rejection, because I know now that I am worthy of someone to show up in a stable, committed way where I don't have to fear to be abandoned. Or say, even if I were to be abandoned, if I was starting a new relationship, if I were to be not abandoned, if they were choosing to leave the relationship because they're just not feeling the same about me, I would not make it mean that I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy or I'm not this. I would just make it mean that they just don't reciprocate the same feelings as me. And that's okay too, because we also don't choose. I don't choose who I'm going to have feelings for. They either happen or they don't. So how can I take that personally? We can't take that personally because we can't switch that flip on and off about who we are attracted to back or not. That's just something that happens completely naturally through the laws, again, of the universe. And whether or not someone is meant to stay in our life or is meant to come in to teach us a lesson or shift a perspective about us or to shift a core belief about us, we don't know unless we go through that experience. So that's all that it is. So I would still even look at that now a lot more differently. And because my worthiness of love that is stable, I know now that I deserve it. And because I give that to myself, I give myself stable love. And stable love to me means that I don't waver whether or not I am 100% my best version or I am at my 0.01 worst version. I don't abandon myself and I give myself the same love. I don't waver and say, oh, I love you more today, Anna, because you acted in the way that I would think society would accept you the most. And the days that I need the most support is because when I'm acting or experiencing my worst, that I'm just not gonna give myself that same love. No, that's when I need it the most. And I won't abandon myself that, and I won't be unstable in that aspect of myself. I will always give myself the same love, even when the tendency to not want to do that, which again, this really ties with the so-called mistakes and self-forgiveness. I would want to do that 100 times more when I'm going through that state and really, really anchor in what my favorite teacher is teaching me right now, is that mistakes are opportunities for growth and self-development, and we can only know by feeling after if we want to repeat something or not, and know what we learn from that experience, and always try to find the positive meaning out of an experience, because most of the time, because we're wired to be below the line, we're going to land in experiences that will bring out sadness, fear, anger, disgust. Our job is to transmute it back into joy. And how do we do that? We focus on the positive in an experience, so then we can transmute it from feeling negative back into positive, and that's how we keep going in life to receive more positive experiences. And we release guilt, shame, frustration, abandonment, rejection, all those things, and stay in love and gratitude, because we stay in the positive of every single experience that we have. I hope that this video has shed a little bit of light on how the mistakes or so-called life lessons work, and I would love to hear what 2024 had brought for you to learn, to experience. What growth did you have? What challenging experience did you have that led to beautiful gems of living life differently? Or if there's any other topics and or subjects that you would love for me to expand on, I would love to do that. I feel like my next video is going to be about setting intentions. I feel like this is the best time to do that right now, after self-reflection of 2024, setting intentions for 2025, and really trusting that we will have those experiences, because we deserve to experience everything and anything that our mind can think of, because if you can think it, you can achieve it. If you can think it, you can become it. Again, with all my love and gratitude. If you liked anything about the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't want to miss a video, please subscribe or hit that notification button so you know when the new one comes out. And I will also continue on with a workshop of healing inner child and continue on with the health right after setting the intentions for 2025. And yeah, with that being said, I will see you next time.